Welcome, my friends, to Inside the Minds of Authors. I'm DC Gomez, and I'm thrilled you're joining me today for a fun conversation with a passionate author. We're kicking off the program, like it's our tradition, with a short reading from the feature book. I hope you guys enjoy it. Let's get started.
Good morning. We're going to start with chapter 1 of the Empty Kayak. Came out on May 30th, and I'm super excited to share it with you. Chapter 1. Detective Ebony Jones felt as though she was toting around a 1,000-pound weight, which grew heavier and more torturous with each step. Her cargo, a petite 1-year-old, nestled her dark curly head against Ebony's shoulders and wriggled on Ebony's bottom left hip, the one with the .38 caliber bullet fragment lodged in it. Even the slightest pressure from the child's body sent relentless jolts of electricity sizzling down her leg. Between the squirmy kid and the merciless pain, Ebony's trek up the sidewalk was a living hell, and the situation was about to get worse, much, much worse. The toddler's green eyes locked onto Ebony's, so trusting and innocent that they tugged on her jaded cop's heartstrings. Lily Martin's face was muddy. Her fuzzy pink hoodie was soaked from the sudden rainstorm, and she was missing one sneaker. But it wasn't Lily's bedraggled condition that made their walk up the front walk so unbearable. It was the heartbreak that would follow after Ebony rang the doorbell, and Lily's mother answered. The Tudor-style City of Poughkeepsie home belonged to Jessie Martin, Lily's mom, and Ebony's on-again, off-again best friend. Since kindergarten over 25 years ago, the two women had been BFFs, but once they'd pursued conflicting careers in the law, Ebony as a cop and Jessie as a criminal defense attorney, the relationship had deteriorated. Around every corner, clients, cases, and the legal system had thrust obstacles in their paths, testing their friendship. Sometimes Ebony wanted to pack it in and move on, but deep in her heart, she yearned to reconcile with Jessie. The present catastrophe wasn't going to help that cause. On her trip to Jessie's, Ebony had stewed over the appropriate way to tell Jessie that her ex, Lily's father, Kyle, was missing. There would be so many questions. How? When? Where? Why? How could Ebony explain the outcome of Kyle's disappearance when she didn't know for sure if he'd survived the freak accident? Ebony limped up Jessie's bluestone path, laden with a cauldron of emotions. Sorrow, guilt, anger, disbelief, fear, and reluctance, to name a few. She still couldn't swallow the reality. Kyle Emery was missing, and if she was honest, presumed dead. Midway down the walk, Ebony glanced over her shoulder at Xander, who had remained curbside with their unmarked black Explorer. He was tall and slender and leaned against the hood of the car. Xander's brows were drawn together, and he watched her with hawk-like precision. As partners, they were supposed to deliver death notifications in pairs, but he'd made no move to join her on the threshold. Chicken, she thought. Or was he being uncharacteristically empathetic, given her close relationship to Jessie? Delivering the news of a loved one's death, or a possible death, was one of the most onerous parts of her job, and fortunately, she'd never discharged it before. Why did the first time have to be Jessie? This was going to be a day, a moment that would be branded into Jessie's heart and mind forever. The need to perform the death notification properly, professionally, prompted Ebony to ask herself how she'd prefer this horrific news to be disclosed. It wasn't as if she was notifying a stranger. She knew Jessie as intimately as she knew her own kid sister, Carly. And similar to her arguments with Carly, she and Jessie had always forgiven each other, eventually. Ebony only hoped being the messenger of a suspected death didn't permanently sever their already fragile bond. But Jessie was a lawyer, a smart, strong, and fierce criminal defense attorney. She'd understand. She'd want honesty, no bullshit. Straight but gentle, Ebony reminded herself as she scaled the porch stairs, clasping Lily to her side. Upon reaching the landing, she exhaled, pressed the doorbell, and waited. An eternity passed before Jessie answered the door. Jesse's eyes flitted from Ebony to Lily. Jesse's broad smile vanished as a ripple of worry lines surfaced on her forehead and her ears flushed pink. Hal Samuels, Jesse's fiancé, stood behind her, looking equally surprised. They were dressed for early autumn hiking with scuffed tan boots, plaid flannel shirts, and faded jeans. They radiated happiness. Every time Ebony saw Jesse and Hal together, she was reminded that a homicide investigation had reunited them and that new beginnings could grow from despair. Eb, what are you doing here? How did you get Lily? Is she okay? Jessie craned her neck to peek past Ebony's shoulder toward the street. What's going on? Where's Kyle? Ebony cleared her throat. Jessie, we have a situation. Hal dipped his head in recognition. The former district attorney and now Dutchess County court judge seemed to acknowledge her gravitas and cupped his hands on Jessie's shoulders as if propping her up in anticipation of an imminent disaster. Jessie's mossy green eyes burned into hers, and she snatched Lily away from Ebony as though protecting her from a mistress of evil. What do you mean a situation? Tell me what happened to Lily. Is she hurt? Jessie peeled off Lily's wet hoodie, socks, and muddy sneaker and ran her trembling fingers over her daughter's plump body, checking for bumps, bruises, and cuts. Finding none, she continued. Has Kyle been in a car accident? Where is he? Is he okay? As expected, the questions tumbled out, heavy with worry. Despite the pain in her leg, there was something comforting about having the baby's legs locked around her waist and the soft body curled against her, the warmth, the maternal stirrings, the irresistible scent of baby shampoo. The sudden emptiness in Ebony's arms only exacerbated the burden of her visit and reminded her that the worst was yet to come. Ebony's entire vocabulary lodged in the back of her throat like a fishbone. She analyzed the techniques for being sensitive, caring, and supportive as protocol and friendship required. She stood frozen in time and space, cognizant that the truth would make the tragedy real for both of them.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another amazing episode of Inside the Minds of Authors. I'm so excited you guys are joining me today. I have an amazing guest who's been in this show before, so this is going to be a great episode for all of us. If you're new to the podcast, go ahead and subscribe. You don't want to miss a single episode. You can find us on all available podcasting stations, on my website, as well as on Facebook, so you don't want to miss out. Also, if you want to be a part of the process and check out unedited videos of the podcast without having to wait, join the Patreon community. Give us a little extra love. We're here to support. And because you're here to listen to our new author, let's get started. Hello, Miss Jode. How are you?
Good, BC. How you doing?
I am fabulous. I am so thrilled. We have been following this, how do I put it? Torturous adventures you put Miss Jessie to. I cannot even not say this. I'm just going to put it out there. This new chapter, you have put this poor child through all sorts of hell. She keeps coming up. She keeps bouncing back. I need to know what is going on here and why. Why do you keep doing this to Jessie?
Well, Jessie is really a fun protagonist. When I started writing, I wanted to create a character who could handle all the stuff I was going to throw at her. And I wanted a female attorney because they always say, write what you know. And being a female attorney, I figured I'd start with her. But I would turn the clock back several decades and bring Jessie. She's in her 30s, so she's just starting out on her career and on her life. I think when you are in your 30s, you're much more flexible to things that are thrown at you. As we get older, we kind of get set in our ways, as you know. But being somebody young, Jessie needed to have adventure. She is the character that started in the midnight call, getting a phone call from a teacher saying, look, I need your help, having her life go down the drain. And now she's progressed to somebody who is really coming into her own. She's realizing that she can be a criminal defense attorney, but I had to do the worst thing possible to her. And that was kill off her former partner and her baby daddy.
This is baby drama to a whole new degree. I was like, ooh, baby daddy drama. This is as bad. And we But following this journey with her, and we know it wasn't all roses with us too. They weren't really, but at the same time, you really still don't want to be the father of your child to be dead. She's an emotional character. She has all these things coming and still be able to keep her head up. I want to know what made you decide to continue in the series.
I originally didn't even think about writing a series when I did the first book, The Midnight Call. And then right before I handed it in to the publisher, I added the last line, which was a cliffhanger, which would carry it over. As I was writing, I began to feel that the series had legs, that I had created characters who could go on different adventures. And the way that I look at it is that I'm world building. I mean, I'm not George R.R. Martin, but just as he world builds, as writers, we world build. And I found that creating a legal community, first of all, I'm inspired by local true crimes that happen in Poughkeepsie, in the Hudson Valley. So by doing that, and I can put my characters in what if situations, what if they were faced with these particular crimes. So that's what I've been doing. And people seem to love it. They love the true crime angle and they love the characters. So I've been very, very lucky.
We are all connected to things. We are very much creatures who are curious. So you have tapped into an entire world that makes us all go, I like the fact that you have taken true crimes and make it into fictions. Because I'm not a true crime reader. I'm like, that's too much. Like, that's too raw. That's too in my face. I need to have some separation. So I love the fact that it's based on something, but then you twist it. So it makes me very, very excited. The journey continues. She is now in a whole new world of turmoil that you continue to add this poor child. Let's just put it out there. What made you decide to add a new character?
Well, what's interesting is that I don't want things to be static. I want the community to grow. And so what I did this time was, well, I've carried over Jesse Martin, who's my main protagonist, and also Detective Ebony Jones, who was Jesse's best friend growing up. As I mentioned in the reading, the two have become polarized because one is a cop and the other is a criminal defense attorney. One does the arrests and the other sets them free. So I figured that I wanted to create a more mature character, someone who could give a different perspective on the legal process. So I created a character named Cindy Tirico, who is the smacking brand new district attorney. And so she is, for the first time, she is facing a major case and she's kind of lost. I mean, here's a gal that's in her 50s. She's lived a life. She's had experiences, but just like the rest of us, she's faced with something new and she has to learn how to deal with it. She has to figure out, is there a crime here? If there is, how do I go about establishing it? And one of the things I want to mention is that usually crimes happen on the land, and we have a very clearly defined crime scene. So you walk into somebody's house and you see the chalk lines on the floor, and you can have DNA, you can collect DNA, you can take photographs. Here, we have a character who's faced with a crime scene that is 315 miles long and 1 mile wide, which is the Hudson River. For her first major crime, how does she go about analyzing that? And I thought, again, just as I'm throwing Jesse's ex literally into the river, I'm creating a character who has to face an immense challenge in her job.
I'm always asking this because I'm curious beyond belief. How much research did you do for this book compared to everything else? Because you're adding a whole different level of forensics and you're adding water, you're adding all these pieces that you hadn't had in your previous one. How much research?
I spent a lot of time researching this. And I started out, believe it or not, at the Dutchess County Fair. My husband and I were walking down and we saw this huge tank that had been brought in by the New York State troopers. And that was their dive team. They were giving a demonstration about how they go about finding people when they fall overboard. And I thought, this is where I need to start. So I started with the trooper barracks out in Millbrook. And that led me to this amazing woman called Andrea Zafaris. And she is really a world-renowned aquatic forensic pathologist who lives in our area. And it turns out, after speaking to her, she was also the expert on the true crime. So I was able to get all kinds of insights directly from her about the actual true crime. Those are two aspects that I had never dealt with before. Also, I was able to speak to an actual forensic pathologist out in Santa Clara. I mean, my research went from literally coast to coast. And I mean, it's really, to me, I like to learn. I mean, I would take classes day in and day out. I have several degrees and, I just like going to school. So for me, I'm kind of self-teaching. Every book teaches me something different. And I want to be able to do that and inform my readers without beating them over the head.
I'm a life learner myself, so this to me speaks to my soul. I love the fact that you're adding your message without being preachy, because every once in a while, there's a fine line we can cross. And then people tend to turn out. It's like, I don't want to be judged.
Right.
But you're informing, you're entertaining, and you're putting it in such a spicy way that people are like, what if? That's really interesting. So it's absolutely fabulous. Book 3 is out. Jesse's doing amazing things. We're trying to survive. Is there a possibility for book 4?
Well, there's always a possibility for book 4. I just mentioned there's so much research that goes into the books. And this next crime that I'm considering doing is going to take me to a whole different area of research. So I'm taking the summer off because I promised myself that I would. And I'm weighing possibilities of creating the story based upon another insidious crime that has happened here in the Hudson Valley.
I know it's only 3, but these crimes are so outrageous. I'm like, where do they keep coming? What is this? Why do you have all these things happening in Poughkeepsie? What is going on here?
It's like, it's the Hudson Valley. I mean, it's unbelievable. It must be like a 6-inch binder full of these crimes that are just dying to be retold.
Literally.
In the first 3, I had personal connections to the crimes, living in the community. But as I'm going forward, I'm not going to have those type of intimate connections, but I don't think that's going to dissuade me from telling these stories in a compassionate way.
You're always going to have a blast doing it, and your characters are so well developed already that adding a different scenario is not going to change your style or your feel. So I'm excited to see what you have going on. Here's a question. Now that you have different experiences as an author and publishing and being in this world for so many years now, what is one lesson you learned that you didn't expect?
I didn't expect to be able to write a book in a year before I was under contract. And this is something that most writers don't even think about. When you write your first book and you don't have a publisher, you don't have deadlines, you can take 5, 10 years, to write your first book. Once you get a contract, you're under deadlines. So the first book, let's say, took me 6 or 7 years. The second book, I didn't have a contract again for most of it, took me 2 or 3 years. This book, I had to write in a year. So that was a real lesson. And, you see James Patterson and Baldacci writing a book a year, and you wonder how they can do it. Well, you can do it. It isn't the easiest thing in the world, but you also learn not to write broad. The first book you write, it could be like 150,000 words, and then you have to trim it back. As I've gone along as a writer, I think I've been more concise in my writing, and I know not to diverge off the path, to stay focused.
We tend to be much more strategic with our writing and be much more analytical. Like, this is what you need. All this other fluff is pretty. We don't need it. Like, it's going to get cut anyways.
Exactly. You don't need to describe every blade of grass and the butterfly flitting from flower to flower. Just cut it. Just stay straight on.
I think
you know that as a writer. Okay. You know that.
We're very comfortable now. Like, and the more you do it, the more you realize it's not going to make it to the book. Why am I even bothering? Like, let's just get to the dead body. Let's just jump to that part.
Exactly.
People will appreciate it. So I absolutely love it. I am so excited for your process. I am excited you decided to take the summer off. What made you decide that? What was that process like?
That's a hard process because every morning I get up now and I'm like, okay, I have to sit down and go to work. It's like, no, I don't. I don't have to go to work today. That was a hard decision. But as I said, I was under contract. So for the past 3 years, I've been really either promoting a book or writing a book. And I said, you know what? I think I owe myself and I owe my husband and I owe my grandkids just some fun time. And I owe me some fun time. So that's what I'm doing. Even though the urge is there to get up every morning and sit down and start to research and whatever, I hold back. I'm restraining myself.
I'm so happy you're finding that medium that goes, okay, I'm allowed to step back and enjoy what I have done without feeling that I got to go back and hustle. So love it. Love it. So my dear, what advice would you give to an up and coming author? Because I'm always curious what authors, as your experience grow, would you tell somebody who's just starting out?
Okay, I would tell them, first of all, to be perseverant. Don't give up. If you really want to write, hang in there. Second, you don't have to go to a major publishing company to be published. There are tons of small presses out there for every single genre. Just do your research and you'll find a press that will help you on your path to publication. And third, join writing groups, go to conferences, network with people, because that's how not only improve as a writer, but you're going to learn the craft of writing. It's not just putting your fingers on a keyboard. There's certain things you really should know in order to communicate to an audience and to retain an audience. So those are my top three.
This is so good for everyone, especially when we start thinking about it. Everybody thinks they have to go to the major four to get published. Right. There's options up there, so you can do it whichever way makes sense to your career. Absolutely. So, Madame, tell us, where can our viewers find you, where they can learn more about the books, where they can get connected with you?
Well, first of all, I have a brand new website, www.jode, Jode, Millman, Millman.com. I'm very happy about that. They can find out where I'm going to be on tour. They can go ahead and also order the books. One thing I don't know if I mentioned to you was that my previous book, Hooker Avenue, is a finalist for the Romance Writers of America Kiss of Death, Daphne du Maurier Award for Excellence in Mystery and Suspense Writing.
Congratulations. That is huge.
It's huge. I mean, it's absolutely huge. So I just had to throw that in because I'm just so proud. And so
so glad that is so huge. I'm glad you told us. Absolutely.
But they can go to my website. I'm on Facebook as Jodé Millman. Jodé Writes on Instagram. Just go to my website. All of my information is right there. People can contact me, sign up for my newsletter. It's just me there. You can reach me, and I do write people back.
I love it. So for our listeners, you want to make sure you get connected. You want to learn more about this series, this book, and this amazing author that you don't want to miss out. So, Madame, before you leave us, are you ready for the lightning round?
I am. I'm ready. I look forward to this every time.
It's hard because, I'm writing them as I go. I was like, I hope I didn't use these questions. So we're going to do this and see how we do it. Ready?
Ready.
Cold drinks or hot?
Cold.
Okay. Fruit or veggies?
Fruit.
Nice. City or country?
Country.
Okay. Jeans or leggings?
Jeans.
Here's a little different. And as a lawyer, this should be interesting to hear what you're going to say. If your life had a warning label, what would it be?
Too hot to handle.
Woo! I love it. Like usual, it is an absolute pleasure to have you. Do you have any closing remarks for us?
No, thank you, DC. It's always so much fun to talk to you. And I appreciate, as a writer, I appreciate your support of other writers as well.
It is always a pleasure and an honor, and congratulations on all the amazing things. I'm doing a happy dance for you. It's going to be amazing. Book 4 comes out. You need to let us know. We want to know all about it. And enjoy your summer. By the time this podcast comes out, you'll be back to writing. So we definitely want an update, and have an amazing day. To our listeners, go ahead, subscribe, make sure you join our community. We're always better when we're going together, and you don't want to miss an episode. And I'll be back next week with another exciting author. Bye, guys.